friends, do you see what I have here? You're right, it's a clock. Now this clock might look different than some of the clocks you have at home or in your car. What's that, Hawksley? Oh, you usually use the clock on your phone? Yeah, our family does that a lot too because we have our clocks with us. What do you call the kind of clock that you can wear on your wrist? It's usually smaller than this, and it can be like a piece of jewelry, but it also tells you what time it is. Do you know what that's called, Aviana? What do you call that? You're right, it's called a watch. Remember the day we practiced counting by twos, and then we made a little watch like that, a little pretend one that we designed? It's fun to design things, isn't it? Well, boys and girls, today we're going to talk about telling time to the hour. Now, sometimes when we look at our clock, like on a phone, the numbers will be written out. Let's see if I can show you an example of that. Let's see if I can. Here's a sheet of paper. So I just knocked over a whole bunch of papers. But you might look at the clock when you get up out of bed, and lately it might say something like this. It probably said something earlier when we were still in school. But it might say something like this. And you see the numbers, and it tells you written out that this is 8 o'clock. Those 2 zeros mean it's o'clock. It's on the hour. But there's another kind of clock, like the one we had in school. Yeah, they call this an analog clock. Isn't that a funny name? What it means is it's based on 12, and the hands move around the clock to show us the time. Do you know it does that 2 times every day? The first time is a.m. in the morning. The second time is p.m. in the afternoon. Like when we'd come back from lunch, that would be in the afternoon. That was the second time it went around. Let's think about that. If there are 12 hours in the a.m. time and 12 hours in the p.m. time, look, Luigi's already smiling. He wants to tell me that there's 24 hours in a day before I even asked him. You're right, there are 24. Now, some of you who've talked about Army time before might know that they say it a different way. They might say something like, I don't know, like I think it's something like 500 hours or 1,400 hours. But they say the times a little differently. Well, today we're going to talk about the minute hand and the hour hand. The minute hand is the long hand. It tells you how many minutes have gone by. The small hand is the hour hand, and it tells you which hour we're on. Now, the only thing we're going to focus on right now is times that are exactly on the hour. So let's start like this. I'm going to put the minute hand on the 12, because when it's an o'clock, it's always going to be pointing straight up at the 12. And I'm going to start on the 1. And let's just count going around the clock the numbers we see. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Are some of you wanting to sing that song about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, rock? I know, it reminds me of that too. Let's keep going though. 4, 5, 6. It's like a straight line now, isn't it? The minute hand's on the 12 and the hour hand's on the 6, and it makes a straight line. In this case, it looks like an arrow. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and do you know what's under there? You're right, it was the 12. Let's do a peekaboo. Peekaboo, yep. When they were both there, it's 12 o'clock. In the daytime, we call that 12 o'clock noon. At nighttime, we call it 12 midnight. Yeah, that would be a very late time when it's dark outside. Well, the way we know how to say what time it is by looking at the hour hand and seeing what number it points to. See how the hour hand is pointing to the 3? Because the minute hand is straight up, I know it's going to be something o'clock. And because the hour hand's pointing to the 3, that makes us 3 o'clock. Let's try another one. Now the hour hand's pointing to the 7, but the minute hand is still straight up. What was that, Daniel? You're right, 7 o'clock. Let's try another. 11. The hour hand's pointing to the 11, The minute hand is still straight up. What would we call that one? Yes, you're right, Claudia. That is 11 o'clock. Nice work. Well, let's take a look at our worksheet and do some practice with telling time. If you look up in the corner, look, they're suggesting that we use a bingo dotter for this, but you know what? I left all my bingo dotters at school, so I'm going to use a highlighter today. You could do this with a crayon. You could use a pencil, or maybe some of you are very fortunate and you have a bingo dotter at home. That way you could bingo dot these. All right, just like we saw on our yellow clock a minute ago, the little hand, the hour hand, is pointing to the 3, and the tall hand is pointing to the 1. What's that going to be? What do you say, Logan? You're right, 3 o'clock. So I'm going to color in where it says 3, ... that's called a colon, 00, that's 3 o'clock. All right, I'm going to ask Mason to help